And welcome into the Fieldhouse Files live Pacers post-game show after the Pacers get the Game 3 win here tonight, the final 111-106. And what a game it was from a multitude of reasons, right? So much went on in this one that helped the Pacers get the win, but it wasn't easy, and it was a game that they had to fight until the very bitter end in a multitude of ways and get contributions from all over. Halliburton's start, DiVincenzo was so good throughout this one. Dante DiVincenzo finishing with 35 points, but just 3 points in the final quarter as the Knicks shot it well from three-point land for most of the game, finished better than 51%, but ultimately late. You had so many different guys. It was Siakam, 9 points in the fourth quarter. You had Miles Turner's chase down block. You had Aaron Nesmith getting the offensive rebound, tap out, and then Andrew Nembhard with another game-winning shot. From that left side, man, he loves that left side. That's obviously where he knocked it down in a game winner at the Lakers during his rookie season last year. So there's obviously that memorable one. And then, of course, the one tonight, step back from 31 feet as the shot clock is expiring. Just a big-time shot right there that we saw from Andrew Nembhard to put the Pacers in front. And then Nesmith added a couple free throws, but ultimately the Pacers come away with the win. Final 111-106 for the victory. Andrew Nembhard and Tyrese Halliburton have already spoken post-game, and just this is one the Pacers desperately needed. You heard the stat probably on TV. No team has ever come back from a 0-3 deficit in a best-of-7 series. So if the Pacers lost this one, their season was basically over. That's kind of at the point here. And for this Pacers team, you have to maximize right now because OG Anunoby was out in Game 3. He'll probably be out for Game 4 as well. I would not be surprised if he doesn't play another game in the series, not knowing anything about his hamstring, but just knowing what hamstrings are like. We saw Tyrese Halliburton miss about 10 games due to a hamstring injury, and he still never really recovered and got 100% out there. That's why it was so critical that a guy like Pascal Siakam went off. 26 points, 7 assists. Rather quiet, but it all still counts the same. 9 of those coming in the fourth quarter. But it's important because that's the guy who OG Anunoby would normally guard. And he had kept Pascal to below average performances in the first 2 games. Pascal had not been a factor since game 1 and 2 of their first round series at Milwaukee. He hadn't had a big home game in front of the crowd at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and what a crowd it was. The 21st sellout of the season as they had 17,274 in the building. A lot of notable faces, including alums like Dale Davis, Roy Hibbert, Lance Stevenson. It would have been cool if the TV broadcast showed them more often, much like they did the Knicks, which I think is fantastic. I love and enjoy a ton seeing the alumni, see how fired up they are in post-game. We saw the video of Lance and Roy Hibbert slapping hands, dapping up, saying hello. Lance meeting Roy Hibbert's young son, who's I think about 4 or 5 maybe. Now, that's exactly what you want. That's exactly what you remember in games like this. The moment, but also everything else that surrounds it. You had Zaire Franklin of the Colts, Edgerrin James, Caitlin Clark was up there along with her Fever teammates. So it was a special night for so many Pacers fans that were at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Feel free to join in the conversation in the live chat with your questions or your comments if you have anything that you want to let me hear on here. Jalen Brunson held to a series low 26 points after, exploding for 40-point games previously. I don't know how Tyrese Halliburton got to the finish line, but he did. We saw the starters basically come back early. They came back in with 10:30 left in the fourth quarter as things started to get away a little bit, and they were desperately needed. I was surprised that there weren't any subs though late in the game because that's an area the Pacers can really take advantage of this Knicks team because the Pacers have the depth, they have the numbers, whereas the Knicks, man, no Anunoby, no Mitchell Robinson, no Bojan Bogdanovic, no Julius Randle here. The Pacers are just without Benedict Mathurin, who was not a starter, but he probably would have been if he was in there. It just depends. Probably best as a 6th man. But that would have been great minutes for him to be there in the postseason and enjoy this physical play. He would thrive, I think, in this series, and he absolutely would have. Matherin would have in the first series. Let's get to some of our first comments on here. The Flame Keepers. I think you are new on here. He says, prediction: there will be controversy about every single game in the series. So what's the controversy in this one? Trying to think. You had 3 challenges. I think 2 were successful. 1 was not. You're going to have fouls every game that the teams don't like and submit. I thought it was incredible. Actually, that's not the right word. I thought it was interesting and risky, perhaps, to see Rick Carlisle go after the officials in the league office as much as he did after game 2, very much sending a message. Well, they responded and issuing today a $35,000 fine. That's nothing for a guy making $7.5 million per year. Has been coaching in the league for 30 plus years. So that's happily a fine that you will pay. He said before the game that it's something he wanted to do. He wanted to back his franchise, back the fans, and back his players. And so I'm sure they appreciated that, even though I appreciated how Tyrese Halliburton and TJ McConnell after the game and game 2 were like, hey, look, yes, it was a factor, but we lost this one. It's on us. And so they took ownership of that, which is the right call, which is what you need to do, I think, in a game like that. It was not the final or decisive call, but it was impactful. So earlier today, Carlisle was hit with that $35,000 fine, and he joked pregame as well. Well, Abby, that's his daughter, just finished her first year at the University of Virginia, where he obviously went to as well. He goes, looks like Abby might have to take a semester off from college. I know Rick knows this. You may not know this, but I'm pretty sure a semester at UVA out of state is more than $35,000. Nimhard shot was one of those shots in AAU. Flamekeeper says, no, yes. Yeah, kind of. But you also saw the shot clock, so you didn't want him to pass it up. Worst thing would have been for him to pass it. I think a gimpy Tyrese Halliburton was kind of over to the near side, but he just didn't look comfortable late in the games. I was kind of surprised he was allowed to finish the game. However, I get he's a threat out there. You'd rather go down swinging with your best players than to have him on the bench. That said, though, it's going to be a concern for all these players, but especially Brunson, DiVincenzo, Halliburton, the recovery time. They have left less than 48 hours before game 4 coming up at 3:30 Eastern time at Gainbridge Fieldhouse coming up Sunday on Mother's Day. That is an incredibly quick turnaround. There will not be practices, I can guarantee you, for either teams tomorrow. The guys that did not play, they'll get their cardio in. They'll probably play 5-on-5 or 3-on-3. The rest of the team, it's recovery day. It's ice. It's hot. It's the sauna. It's physical therapy. It's massage therapy. Those are going to be the most important people, I think, for the Pacers and the Knicks tomorrow, is to get that treatment and watch video and talk things over. No need to do on-court activities for the key players who are playing in this series. Again, Pacers win 111-106. It's now 2-1 Knicks series lead. But so far, the home team has just held court. Pacers, though, have been tremendous on their home floor, by the way. 9-0. They've won their last 9 games. They're 4-0 in the postseason and have not lost since, I think, mid-March against Cleveland. Dayton Gray, where does that shot rank all time in franchise history? Where would it rank if the Pacers went on to win the series? Got to be near the top post-Reggie era. Yeah, it's hard to do one of those right away. You can be prisoner of the moment a lot, especially when you consider the fact, look, it didn't close out the series. It just got one win. It's the second round, not the conference finals, not the finals. But it definitely continues to give them hope and keeps the door open for the possibility for them to win this series, because if they had lost, there's basically a 1% chance, almost no percent chance that they would come back and win 4 straight games, including 2 at New York. Nah, I wouldn't predict any team to be able to do that, unless, I guess, Brunson and DiVincenzo also became out with injuries here. But it was one of the top ones just because the Pacers have not had a lot of special memories. I mean, this is their first time advancing in the postseason since 2014, so there's a decade. So it's easily the top moment in the last decade. Before that, you had back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals appearances led by Paul George. You had the Birdman highlight. You had a game-winning 3, I remember. And then you had some other special moments. And then you go back probably to the Reggie days. That's probably it. So off the top of my head, Flamethrower, I'd say it's a top 3 playoff moment in the last 2 decades for the Pacers. Welcome back, MK Sinks. You've made it. What are we now? Game 6, so 9 for 9 on the post-game show. He says, or she says, love this W, but why does it not feel satisfactory how the third quarter went? No OG. How the Pacers almost gave it up in the fourth. A lot to clean up. Absolutely. That's why if you're the Pacers, you don't feel great about the win. You're just happy to get out the heck out of there. Remember, they were only up 5 points at halftime after what felt like a dominant first half by this Pacers team, right? It was one where it felt like they were more up 12 or 15 points, yet they weren't. Dante DiVincenzo and those Knicks just kept shooting away and knocking down the three-pointers. Pacers defense was not very good. And so that's what ultimately led to it. And then in that third quarter was incredibly troubling. Pacers were outscored by 10. There was that, 24-6 run. And over the final 7:31 of the third quarter, the Pacers were outscored 24-8. If the Pacers lost this one, that's probably where I go back to. To me, though, the turning point in this game was with about 42 seconds left, where you had that chase down block by Miles Turner. Then that led to a Nembhard layup. Actually, this is 2:26, I think it was, roughly. About 2 minutes left. Chase down block. It led to a Nembhard layup. By the way, he was, I think, 0 for 6 in the game. Had not scored in the first 46 minutes of the game. And then Nembhard scored the key 5 points late in this one to put them over the top. And then you had what Halliburton did throughout the game, 35 points. Siakam was big in the fourth quarter with 9 of his 26 points. But it was Aaron Nesmith batting out the offensive rebound. So fitting, I think, in a series where the Pacers coaching staff so much emphasizing offensive rebounds and having to win that battle. It turned out to be their offensive rebound. They were +3 on the offensive glass, by the way, 13 for them, 10 for the Knicks, who are one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league. Now, with that said, you had the Nesmith bat out. And then how about the big shot by Nembhard? Sometimes you knock down the shots, the ones you don't think most about. He didn't have time to think. Brunson was all over him, and he needed to create space. And so he said he just wanted to get it off. He wasn't too aware of the clock situation. Then he saw it, needed a space, stepped back, and nailed it from what was recorded as a 31-foot shot from that left side. And again, something about the left arc is where Nembhard has a lot of success. But to your point, MK, it shouldn't feel satisfactory because this felt like a game that should have been a 12-point win. And instead, it was just 5 points, and it was decided in the final, 30 seconds? Actually, less than that, about 18 seconds when Nembhard made that three-pointer, ultimately. Brunson got fouled by Nembhard on the right arm before his game-tying heave. It should have been a foul on the floor, not a shooting foul. They may have been on the penalty. I don't remember exactly, but either way, Brunson went to the line, missed 1 of 2, and that was another telling thing. They only missed 6 free throws in this game, but they had only missed 4 in each of their previous 2 games. And if they had made those free throws late, especially, I think there was 3 missed free throws in the couple of minutes by the Knicks. If they had knocked those down, as expected, by the way, instead, Brunson only goes 4 of 7 at the line. I think it was game 1. That was, again, a tight game. I think he went 14 for 14. So got half as many attempts and missed almost half of those foul shots. Oh, I see what you're mentioning. You're mentioning Flame Keepers, that Brunson possible foul. Maybe that would be controversial from the Knicks standpoint. I hear you. Chris Robertson says starters were highly efficient shooting the ball. Bench just 7 of 22. That's why this game was close, with DiVincenzo having an abnormally good night. No doubt. I mean, he finished 7-11 from 3. He made 7 of their 14 3-pointers to lead the way. Now, ironically, or coincidentally, probably is the right way. Tyrese Halliburton made 6. He made half of the Pacers 3-pointers in a game where he's responded well after that game 1 loss and terrible game 1 performance. 6 points, 6 shots. We're gonna remember that, and maybe that's a point in history for his career where not only did he ease in too much, but didn't take the charge, and it was a lesson learned from him as the star player, as the face of the franchise. You got to be out there contributing. And if you're being passive and not doing too much, I think he only had 8 assists anyway. Somebody else got to be out there. Well, in these last 2 games, he deserved to to get significant amount of time because of his performance and obviously scoring a game high 35 points in tonight's Pacers win. That's fantastic, Mike. He says at Hooters. I assume you mean downtown, but at Hooters, hoping Lance shows up. Yeah, you might have an opportunity with that. That's fantastic. Love that. Um, yeah. Who knows what he's up to? I was able to talk with him last night, Thursday night, at the Indiana Fever game as he sat courtside, and he was disappointed throughout the season the fact that he did not get a call up, and we were discussing how really none of the vets in the G League got called up outside of Isaiah Thomas getting called probably up as a favor by the Phoenix Suns, is what we saw, but. Glenn Robinson III, he played for the Wisconsin Herd. He didn't get called up like he was thinking. And so, Lance will probably give it at least one more year in the G League and to try to make it back to the NBA. But he thought at one point the Pacers might call him up after Mathurin went down. They did not. And I think, from what I've been told, I think he's probably not going to be re-signed by the Pacers. They've kind of officially moved on in terms of playing him. Now, by the way, Lance, a lot of fans have mentioned to him, have him rev it up. Yeah, he wants to. He's made clear to the Pacers he wants to rev it up. Tonight, it was Roy Hibbert who flew into town today with his son. And that was notable because Roy revved it up to do. He became the first guy to do it multiple times this season. And Roy did it on opening night all the way back in October. But more than that, this time his son was with him. The last time he flew solo. And so his son got to experience all this. They sat courtside next to the Pacers bench. His son was in Roy's jersey. Whereas I also thought it was cool and notable that Roy was not in his jersey, but he was in Miles Turner's 33 jersey, embracing this new era, embracing this new team, recognizing the past, but wanting to be part of it. And so I thought that was cool, noteworthy, and it's been, again, so much fun to see these Knicks players not only show up, but be embraced by the Knicks broadcast, by the Knicks in arena at MSG, video board, and fans love it. And so I think the Pacers tried to duplicate and replicate that here tonight at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And they had a smaller number, but they had Dale Davis, Lance, Roy Hibbert. I think Derek McKee. I'm not sure how many more were there. I'm sure there was a couple more I was forgetting. But that's a cool moment. Again, feel free to ask and join the conversation here with your comments or questions after this 5-point Pacers win. They now trail 2-1. And here's an interesting note for Game 5 now that we know there is definitely a Game 5. What we now see is Tuesday night will be a fun one for Indy sports fans because at 7:30, it'll be Caitlin Clark's Fever debut at Connecticut. And by the way, I haven't mentioned this anywhere else, but I will be there on site at Connecticut for, I think, what is a monster night for basketball fans in Indiana. But it just so happens now the timing's not ideal for me, not for the Pacers, or not for you at home either, because Game 5 will be at 8 p.m. on Tuesday. Fever game and Caitlin will be at ESPN2 or Disney Plus, whatever you might have, whereas the Pacers will be alongside that 8 p.m. tip-off at MSG, and that will be over on TNT. So I hope you have two TVs or an iPad or at least a second screen so you can have both games on. It should be a fantastic night. Back to the comments. Greg, what's up, Greg? Good to have you on here, man. He says, loves the Pacers ball movement, but it always seems like they are making an extra pass to the extra pass. They're passing up on good looks rather than having the assertion. I agree. Sometimes tonight, I don't think that was the case as much. I mean, I was tracking assists all game long and was surprised at the low number. It wasn't until the fourth quarter where Tyrese Halliburton picked up his 5th assist as he was more assertive and looking for his shot. I think he's heard the noise. I think he's heard from his teammates and his coaches to go out there and score. And at times, in fact, tonight specifically, I thought there was too many times where guys took it upon themselves and almost were trying to get the points on their own rather than getting the ball moving and getting it humming. But in other games, I would agree with you. You need that assertion. That's where you really miss second-year guard Benedict Mathurin, because he's a guy that would just drive into the lane, get a layup, or get to the foul line. And that's really a dimension on this team that they are without right now. Since he's out, since Halliburton's not 100% and keeps getting worse, we saw him fall hard on that back, which kind of re-aggravated that. And I think for the first time, he kind of showed how awful it feels, even more so as he really grimaced on his face after that foul call. And by the way, one thing I would love to see, and I've been saying this for probably a decade, I want to get rid of the defense trying to draw a charge as the help man, where they slide over away from the ball and try to draw the foul. It's incredibly dangerous. More often than not, it's a foul on the defense. They're either moving or have a heel in the restricted area. I want to get rid of that. On top of that, it takes away one of the more exciting plays in basketball with a tough finish or a slam dunk or an incredible layup. And by the way, Tyrese had one of those incredible layups in traffic. He got the steal, took it the length of the length of the floor, and finished an incredible layup in traffic that, considering his health, I was really impressed by that. But good to see you, Greg. Thanks for jumping on here. Pacers outscored the Knicks by 10 in the fourth quarter after being outscored themselves by 10 in the third quarter. I don't know what it is, but the Pacers normally are fantastic in those third quarters, but that was not the case once again tonight and really throughout this series. Back to the comments. The good look. Tell the truth. What are we saying here? The good luck they pulled this one out. Good thing they pulled this one out. Have to show it better. Yeah, no kidding. Absolutely. MK, any idea what percentage of Gamebridge was filled with Knicks fans, would you say? It looked like a solid gold out on TV. Yeah, it's hard to say. I think it was just a small percentage. It was not nearly as many as I actually expected, considering that you could a couple days ago get tickets from the box office for $75. Today, game day, you could get in for $90. That's not very many. Not very much, I should say. Versus the get in price in New York at Madison Square Garden. I'm talking last row just to get you in the building was, I think, $431 last time I looked at the start of this week. So basically 4x. On top of that, good luck getting a hotel in New York right now. Those are going for about $600. It's just outrageous. So I feel for anyone that, man, live in those big cities, pay those big prices. Another first timer, Dean says, curious which series is getting the best ratings. Yeah, you're probably talking about Tuesday, the Caitlin Clark Fever game, I assume, versus the Pacers and Knicks game 5. Yeah. And now if you're talking NBA playoffs, I got to believe the number one ratings is Denver and Minnesota. That'll probably end up being the best series of this postseason. Now, it remains to be seen, but that's certainly what I would expect here. What else do we got? Why do you think Indiana has a hard time containing Hart? I think he's a guy that's constantly moving. He's a guy that, by the way, I was surprised to see him come out in the third quarter. I already had a note pre-typed up for my At the Buzzer post-game column, which, by the way, you can read at fieldhousefiles.com. If you're not a subscriber already, join. I invite you to become a paid subscriber as well, where you get all my stories direct to your inbox. But to me, Josh is one of those hard-nosed players that's constantly in motion, that's constantly outworking you. And so I think that's the biggest reason. You take a second off, whoop, he's already behind you at the basket grabbing the rebound, or he's gotten loose on the baseline. Now, tonight he struggled offensively, just 10 points, but 18 rebounds. 18. You combine the top 2 rebounders on the Pacers, and he out-rebounded them. That's how good Josh Hart was on the glass, and on top of that, 4 assists, all while playing with foul trouble. So Josh Hart's, man, that's a hardworking player that every team would love to have on their team. No doubt about that. What a shot from Nembhard after having a horrible game. No question. I mean, it's one of those where you trust the process, you trust him being through it. And again, that's why experience is so important. He's had to take some of those big shots. He had that monster game last year, his rookie year at Golden State. He had that game winner against the Lakers where Tyrese attacked, kicked it out to him on the left wing. Well, it wasn't nearly anything like that, but it was an offensive rebound. The ball was swung over to Andrew Nembhard. He didn't hesitate. He knew the shot clock was winding down. He needed to create separation from Jalen Brunson. Step back, boom, launched from 31 feet. That was the go-ahead basket. So that was huge for the Pacers, obviously. And that's why you want the shooters to just stay with it, stay confident. And when there is a good shot, to keep taking it. That's the thing. You don't want to force it. You don't want to try to break your slump and ruin what's going on with the rest of the team. But that was a great decision for Nembhard to step back and knock it down. And in doing so, he probably thought less about it. And maybe that's why it went in, because ultimately he finished 2 of 8 from the field, missed his first 6 shots, made a layup with, I think, like a minute to go, 2 minutes to go. That was after that Miles Turner block, and then hit the go-ahead 3-pointer. Haven't talked about Aaron Nesmith just yet, by the way. I'm surprised. No one's asked about Nesmith's performance or what he did defensively. We'll get to that, certainly, because I'm not skipping that here on the postgame show. I got about 10 more minutes with you here. I hope you guys have a great Mother's Day weekend, by the way. Back to the comments here. Just be you. I was screaming for Rick to put Nesmith in on that Knicks run at the end of the third. Yeah, the bench just didn't have it tonight. I forget what the exact number was. I had it in my post-game column, but the Pacers bench was outscored by the Knicks. And what makes that even more telling is the fact that the Knicks are basically on like their third unit now. They have a unit that's unavailable with injuries, right? With Randall, with Bogey. Who else we got? Without Randall, Bogey, Mitchell Robinson, and OG Anunoby. And OG being out is significant because these New York Knicks are 26-4 this season when he plays. It's incredible what he's been able to do and help turn around the Knicks and make them even more of a contender. And imagine if Bogey was coming off the bench. That's outstanding. What else we got here? Greg, again, why do you think Rick is keeping McConnell on the bench in the closing minutes? I don't understand it the first 2 games. Tonight, you kind of do. In fact, I was, though, thinking this goes to tell you sometimes things just do work out. Is late. I was sitting there saying, hey, look, Nembhard just doesn't have it tonight offensively. 0 for 6, hasn't scored. You got 3-4 minutes left. I'd bring McConnell in to start provide some juice. I was surprised there were no substitutions there over the final like 10 minutes, right? Because Carlisle went back to the starters for the final 10:30. The Pacers were down 95-86. So that was absolutely the right call. But it had the Pacers feeling more like the Knicks and Tom Thibodeau, where they don't make any substitutions. Basically, they lean heavily on their starters. I thought you'd get one more glimpse of TJ over that final 10 minutes, but you didn't. But because of Halliburton limping, because of his low back, I thought you might see a substitution. I even had a Pacers fan who was down sitting by the bench text me or message me and say, hey, look, Halliburton just probably asked out. He is not feeling well at all. That was with a few minutes left. Then he stayed in the game. To my earlier point, though, I was thinking with the way Nembhard was playing, maybe you pull him, throw TJ in there to kind of provide a jolt, to throw a different look at Jalen Brunson as well, but they didn't. Now, I didn't like it in game 1 and game 2, to be clear, Greg. Tonight, I thought you would early on, but once you got to about 2 minutes left, I would not have made that change just because of where you had it rolling. Pacers had some timeouts, and those reviews helped both teams. They needed those stoppages because there was that 6-minute dry spell for the Knicks where they went between field goals. That was ugly basketball. You could tell they were kind of on their last legs, and that's why it was even more important for the Pacers to pull this one out if they want any chance to have one, to win the series. Going down 0-3, zero chance. Max says, what one position or player can the Pacers acquire in the offseason to become a legitimate title contender? It would be a 3-and-D guy. It would be, I hate to say it because somebody's going to bring it up now, but a Paul George type, right? A guy that can lock down defensively. He can also score 35 points in a night. But more than anything, this team needs defense. I was texting a different coach, or a coach not in the game here, during this one, and we were just marveling at the team's defense and how terrible it looked at times. And Halliburton, how he just didn't try or gave up on some certain plays. The defense is where more improvement continues for this Pacers team. They gave up like 120 points, 121, I think, in game 1, 130, I think, in game 2, and lost them both. Tonight, look, you hold the Knicks to 106 and you win. And also notably, something I've been tracking all season, which I think is hilarious. I think they have one win when they're held below 110 points. Tonight, just above that, 111, and they won. And by the way, I haven't mentioned it yet, but the fact that the Pacers were outscored by 10 points in the third quarter means they went into the fourth quarter with a deficit, down by, I think, 5. And the Pacers this season, during the regular season, were 5-28 when entering the fourth quarter with a deficit. And yet tonight showed they went against the norm. Even though that is an area they had struggled with, they overcame that. and had a good fourth quarter. You got to throw out a lot of norms, I think, in this series, just because of the Knicks, because of where we are in the playoffs. But like, for example, the Pacers are generally awful in the second quarter. Tonight, they were just -4. They're usually incredible in the third quarter. They only scored 22 points in this one. So it's just very interesting to see the different dynamics and how much we follow them during the regular season and how sometimes you throw that out because it doesn't carry over into a series like this one. Mike again says Knicks fans had a chant going. Yeah, it was at the end of the third quarter. I heard that. Let's go Knicks. And then it was cool. I think about 6 minutes left maybe in the fourth quarter. It was during that run by the Pacers. You had Siakam with a couple of and ones. You could hear a real loud roar of let's go Pacers. So that's what you love to see during the playoffs is both teams, both fan bases getting into it. I'm definitely here for that. You say some ladies in front of me were from New York and son worked for Pat McAfee. Oh, that's funny. I wonder if that's Bruce. It's probably Bruce, I'm guessing. Let me know if it is, Mike. Just be you. He hit the same shot against the Raptors as rookie year. I'm guessing you're talking about Nembhard, maybe. I love Neesmith, but relying on him for 36 minutes a game limits the Pacers' upside. Yeah, so let's get to that since finally someone brought him up here, and probably because I mentioned him earlier there. But Neesmith, they start him out on Brunson. That's what I love to see. I was glad to see that. It was what I was hoping to see after game one. For as good as Nembhard has been, Jalen Brunson is a tough, physical, well-built guy. And so it seems, just from what we've seen in this matchup and even going back to the round one against the 76ers, is he struggles more with length than he does physicality. Nembhard's more of a physical guy. He doesn't really look like a physical presence, talking about Andrew Nembhard, but he is. And up next to him, he's really well built. He doesn't mind playing physical, but Jalen loves that more. So instead of putting that and matching physicality, you either need to get a little pain in the ass pest like TJ McConnell, but more specifically, he struggles with length. And so I thought that's what really worked tonight with Aaron Neesmith. 26 points for Brunson. I give Brunson credit, though. 39 minutes playing on a bad foot. And again, the quick turnaround for Sunday, an enormously important game for the Pacers, purely from the circumstantial. Throw out the series number down 2-1. The fact that Dante's going to have a sore back, I guarantee you, after tonight. Brunson, that sore right foot. OG likely will be out. Pacers have to take advantage of their circumstances. Cominio says yes to a Paul George type, but no to PG specifically. Yeah, and I've talked about that before. I just brought him up because the relevance to the audience, all of you are well aware of Paul George, the type of player he is, and how he would fit in. But more than anything, PG just doesn't fit the timeline. And he's more a win-now player. Paul's wanting to win a title. His career is closer to the end than the beginning, which is sad for me to say because I was there at the beginning when it started, 10th overall in 2010. But he's been in the league a remarkable 14 years already, 7 with the Pacers and then 7 elsewhere in OKC and with the LA Clippers. Tyler Y is on here. And by the way, he says he's just now tuning in. And so if you are as well, feel free to watch a replay of this one afterwards. It'll be available here. And I will also post it on my Fieldhouse Files podcast. My last guest I had was Fred Katz. He joined me yesterday. Hey, thumbs up. Yes, sir. My last guest was Fred Katz, who is on the Knicks beat, writing for The Athletic. He's in town here and does a tremendous job covering them. So I suggest you follow his work if you want maybe a Knicks perspective of what's going down on everything. All right, just a couple more questions here on a Friday night. I'm sure many of you are out enjoying it, or maybe you just put the kids to bed or what have you. MK Sinks kind of surprised looking at the box score. Siakam, 26 points. Would have guessed 15 to 17. Totally right there with you, man. Same thing. I felt the same way. It was more because of that in fourth quarter. I think there was so much that happened in that final period that his scoring kind of got lost. Didn't he have a couple of and ones? He had 9 in the fourth quarter, including helping that Pacers 11-1 run that gave them a lead 100-99. But I'm with you there. It was not a loud 26 points and 7 rebounds. Foul trouble bothered him. It bothered several other players, Andrew Nembhard in particular as well. And Josh Hart had 5 fouls, something they were dealing with. And by the way, I counted at least 2 calls that Carlisle probably earned by his rant, right? There was the shove in the back of Tyrese Halliburton was one of them. that was like 92 feet from the basket. It was a bad foul, but one they really weren't calling. So that was an example of what worked there. All right, couple more questions here. And remember, you can read all my work at fieldhousefiles.com and listen to the Fieldhouse Files podcast. Luis says, do the Pacers get the day off tomorrow? Is it a body recovery day? You are not getting the day off. I guarantee you they will be in there. And it will be a body recovery day for the key players that you're referring to, right? The starters, the Halliburtons, the Turners, Nemhard. Those guys are getting in there. They're getting body treatment by the athletic trainers and massage therapists. All of that is absolutely needed. Now, the other guys, if you're talking about Doug McDermott, probably Ben Shepherd, I don't know, Jalen Smith, they're probably playing 3-on-3 with the practice guys to keep their cardio and such. That stuff is absolutely needed. Do you think Halliburton, now that he has the playoff experience, will appreciate Mathurin's game a little bit more? He's built for the playoffs. Maybe. I think it's hard to say without them playing each other and playing with each other and being in these moments together and building that chemistry in the tough moments. So that's something they both look forward to. It's tough. It's got to be a killer for Mathurin not to be able to be out there right now with his teammates in these primetime moments against the Knicks and Madison Square Garden. A big Haitian group, by the way, in New York as well. So it's always meaningful to him to go out there. But yeah, he is not available for the rest of the series. Well, the Pacers get the win tonight, 111-106. I'm going to wrap this one up and get to more writing and listening back to the post-game sound as the Pacers get the win. Now trail 2-1 in the series. And game 4 is coming up Sunday at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It'll air nationally on ABC. Thanks to everyone for joining me. Listen to the Fieldhouse Files podcast. Subscribe at fieldhousefiles.com. And I will talk to you again on Sunday after Game 4. Have a great weekend, everyone.